Hi YouTubers, Elsie Butcher here. Today is Wednesday, May 24th, 2017, and the title of this teaching is Why I Am Not Afraid. I'm not afraid because I have divorced myself from God's kingdom and the danger associated with it. The word danger comes from the Latin word dominium, meaning ownership, and the word dominion from the Latin word dominus. Dominion means supreme authority or sovereignty or a controlling influence, and that controlling influence is their Lord, being identified in Strong's Concordance as God, Master, Ruler, the one exercising dominion or control over others. And the one that is supreme, or is the supreme or chief controller, and the Latin word dominus means the master of the house, that dominates, that rules or controls, and the word dominus is akin to the Latin word domus for our English word dome, with these meanings. Okay, dome, 1, cathedral, being of or referring to a cathedra, a chair of authority, or the throne of a bishop. And the word bishop comes from the Greek word episkopos, literally meaning the overseer or the supervisor. Episkopos comes from the prefix epi, and the Greek word skepetestai, meaning a criminal that is spying, watching secretly for hostile or malevolent or hateful purposes. And whom does the Bible call the bishop and the shepherd of the soul? In 1 Peter 2:25, it is Jesus. 2, dome, house, the church, defined as either the whole body of Christians or that which is of their Lord being akin to the Sanskrit words hero and warrior. Hero, one extremely admired and devoted to, or being faithful and obedient to. A warrior, one that wages war or warfare. 3, dome or house. 2 meanings. A family including ancestors, descendants, and kinship, those in relationship with, as romantic and passionate attachments, or as non-entities associated or combined with, that are visionary, illusory, deceptive, and passionate, or being filled with anger, being filled with wrath. One meaning for demons or evil spirits is this: ghosts that are angry, disembodied, transmigrated souls whenever they come into the bodies of others. B, house, a monastery, an establishment for monks, a religious order of friars, Friars, or of brothers, members of a mendicant order, being beggars or paupers. Which reminds us of the word fakirs, Fakirs, the poor men, Muslim mendicants or ascetics, miracle workers or wonder workers, or thaumaturgists, which means magicians, sorcerers, wizards, warlocks, male witches, and wonder workers. In past teachings, I have shown you that fear comes from the kingdom of darkness and from God or Lucifer. In order to fulfill my purposes for being in this earth, that is, to correctly separate the Word, which is Jesus, from truth, and to prove the same, I found it absolutely necessary to first clearly identify the differences between God and truth, and then to renounce darkness and fear. Terror reigns in this earth because it comes through the rulers of the darkness of this world, as identified in Ephesians 6. Since I do not belong to God or Lucifer, he, she, it cannot compel me to take that which belongs to darkness, including fear. But I can resist fear. That is, I can stand against fear and all that comes from darkness until it is completely defeated. The rulers of the darkness of this world, according to Ephesians 6, is identified in the concordance as being satanic. Because I am not afraid does not mean that I am not cautious or circumspect or prudent. That is to say, I try to use good judgment. I try to consider circumstances and consequences to wrong actions. Since I found out that God and his kingdom represent slavery and all that is wrong in this earth, and that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that is, always a slaver, I decided that for my own protection and for the well-being of those with righteous hearts everywhere, that I have to resist all that God's kingdom brings against me. And whenever I yield to temptation, I admit it and ask the righteous originators of all reality to remove it from my record. The dogs, the contemptuous ones, the sons and daughters of Lucifer come at me persistently. In the concordance to the New Testament, the word dogs is identified as hounds, or mean, despicable, common, low people, as well as those that pursue, harass, persecute, and beset, or trouble me, like hound dogs. I would like to share with you some of the backlash and intimidating measures that my enemies have used against me to prevent these teachings of truth from continuing. I know beyond doubt that I am on a blacklist. That is to say, the so-called powers that be have me on a list of persons to be disapproved of and to be punished and boycotted. Boycotted means those against me are engaged in a combined refusal to have friendly interactions with me and to force me to accept these conditions. 1. Slavery on the down low. 2. Extortion, or being shaken down, having money taken from me in deceitful, contemptible ways. 3. To be in tacit or silent agreement with oppression, and to confess that God is my Father and Jesus is my Lord, which I absolutely refuse to do ever again. I know that I was swindled out of my home that I lived in for 39 years and can prove it. However, having talked to 2 lawyers here in Baltimore without success, I decided to go to Washington, D.C. to contact a high-profile lawyer there. But before I went, I called the 411 information operator and was given a phone number and an address here in Baltimore for that lawyer. And I did go to that address, but was informed by a man that identified himself as a lawyer that his firm had been in that particular building for many years. He then referred me to another lawyer, but by this time, I was getting a little bit suspicious about my not being able to contact the lawyer of my choice. So I went to Washington. I found the office of the high-profile lawyer, but was met with disappointment. It seems that someone had been there ahead of me. The receptionist in the lobby of the building said that I could not just go to the lawyer's office without an appointment. And I explained that my phone was tapped, causing me to come instead of phoning ahead. However, as I explained the receptionist's comments to a person that had come with me to Washington, there was a stout Caucasian man sitting near and watching. As soon as I explained my disappointment, he left. Had he gotten there ahead of me in order to foil my visit, I asked myself? The receptionist did give me a phone number to call, so using someone else's phone, I called the lawyer's office and told the person answering that I wanted an appointment. What was the nature of my problem, she inquired. So after explaining it briefly, she told me she would contact me in a few days. So I returned to Baltimore and waited. After a few days, someone did call me to tell me that their firm could not handle my case, but that I should contact the Bar Association here in Baltimore. However, because an enforcement agency of the city government was involved, and because I was getting the feeling that the lawyers here in Baltimore are a tightly knit group that would not seek justice for me, I did not go to the Bar Association. But I decided to return to Washington to seek an investigative journalist at the Washington Post. This time, a lobby receptionist told me I could not speak with a reporter unless I had a name. Anyway, she said I was in the wrong lobby, and she directed me to another lobby where I was met by another receptionist who repeated the words of the first one. So I went outside and stood until someone came out of the building, and I asked if that person knew the name of an investigative reporter. Yes, she said, I do. So she gave me a name and a number to call. I went back inside and dialed the number and was asked whom I would like to speak to. So I said Vanessa Williams, which was the name I was given. Then I was given about a 7 or 8-digit extension number and was put through to someone identifying herself as Miss Williams. But she informed me that I should try the Baltimore Sun. She didn't think she could help me. I was told this without her ever listening to or looking at the evidence I had. So I returned to Baltimore. I need to mention that the number for the second lawyer that I was given by someone in the supposed office of the address of the high-profile lawyer here in Baltimore was not useful at all. Although I dialed the number and could hear phones in the background being answered with the words lawyer's office, I was told that I had a wrong number and it was not a lawyer's office at all. So I was speechless. I had an occasion to go to the rent escrow court about problems I was having in this rented house in which I reside now. After failing to have these problems resolved by the landlord or the management company, and a judge told me to put the rent in escrow until the problems were resolved, which I did for 3 months. What happened after that is too long for me to detail here, but suffice it to say that I was awarded a portion of my rent back with only one major complaint taken care of and some cosmetic repairs done to the rest. But even though I've gone to court at least 4 times, with only 2 times being in front of a judge, with cases resolved in my favor on each occasion, every court document came back to me that instead of resolution, my actions were dismissed. So much for truth and justice. There is much corruption in the legal system. It is palm greasing, I suspect. Everywhere I go, people seem to know me, and in some way to mistreat me. I took 2 of my brothers to an ice cream parlor and ordered a banana sundae for myself, and was given unripe bananas in the sundae, which means that it was inedible. As I had previously been given the cold shoulder by the waitresses there, I have decided not to return there. Last Saturday, I ordered 3 shrimp baskets from a local fast food pizza shop. The shrimp in the basket was no bigger than the first digit of my thumb. I was shocked. All of them were covered over by fries, each basket costing around $9. Also, my family members are beginning to be put in financial binds. Some of them cannot find jobs. One being laid off from a job for an incident, a minor one, that happened 30 plus years ago. Laid off without pay for a solid month. One has had his Social Security check slashed because of a so-called error by the Social Security Administration, but the slashed funds will remain that way due to no fault of his own. I know the pressure is coming against my family and against me because I am telling the truth about the unfair system in which we find ourselves. Members of my family, except for a few, have little to do with me. When they do come or call, their conversation is either very guarded or rehearsed. These are people I have known all of their lives or for a good portion of their lives. Not only is their God a jealous one, but is also a selfish one. Remember, the word logos means divine wisdom or reason, and reason means to calculate or to make a calculation, a plan that is cold and heartless to promote self-interest. I hear a lot of people saying nowadays, that sounds like a plan. Whenever a goal is mentioned or a way of bringing it to fruition. But I always think about Jesus and his cold, heartless, selfish plan or scheme for ruining the species of man and the earth whenever I hear that phrase. Sounds like a plan. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that I face the same temptations as everyone else. I have trials like others, but the difference is I know how to resist. I know that Jesus is not my Lord, but is the God of the unrighteous and those that are still ignorant of his true character. I intend to stand in opposition to Jesus, God, and darkness as long as I am in this earth. On the 20th of May, I went food shopping at a supermarket that I visit regularly, and while I was in line, somebody representing himself as a cashier opened up another line, so I went there. The thing that was strange about this man was that he had a skull ring on each of his fingers. And I know that I recently uploaded a video with information about mementos mori and their actual meaning. So was this the so-called cashier sending me a death message with his excessive skull rings? I am not intimidated. It is also true that every time I leave this house to go anywhere, someone comes in, brings in bugs, etc., put them in my chairs, in my bed, etc., which necessitates me having to clean up behind them all of the time. I do remember that the Adamic species is a mean, common, hypocritical one of low degree. They're still trying to manage my life, even to force me to go to another state in which I do not want to go to find a residence. Still trying. The title of this message is Why I Am Not Afraid. As I've mentioned before, I refuse to be intimidated by the various terrorist tactics brought against me, but I am still circumspect or prudent. I still try to use good judgment, and as I said before, when I do yield to temptations, I go before the righteous originators of all reality to tell them about the misdeed and to ask that they be removed from my record. This truth shall be told in all the earth before the end will come. I'd like to remind you of Mr. Assange, the man responsible for the WikiLeaks, who is seeking asylum in an embassy overseas, and about Edward Snowden, who blew the whistle on various governmental agencies that spy on American citizens, and he has defected now to Russia. I am sharing information that each of you can prove for yourself, which will shake the very foundation of this earth and I do not seek asylum elsewhere. YouTube is my platform. As I said before, this truth shall be told in all the earth before the end will come. I'm Elsie Butcher. Until next time, I thank you for listening.